Welcome to week one Fireside Chat for Educational Leadership 655, Pupil Services and Non-Discrimination. This week begins on January 19th and concludes on January 25th, 2026. An orientation recap. Make sure that you have posted your biography in Moodle. That's due the first day of class. Make sure that you have the course text, School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America, and email me by Friday, January 23rd, if you want to be paired on a learning team. We have 4 principles of school leadership that we'll introduce in this week and will be emphasized throughout class. The first one is discretion. The second one is best interest. The third is Board of Education policy. And the fourth is induction, or how do we bring people into the system responsibly, both staff, students, and then also parents. Our week one theme, foundations of pupil services programs. We're going to talk about best interest of the child. It's in federal law, but always context dependent, and interpret it through human bias and experience. School of Errors, in reading that, we're going to find that there's no universal definition of best interests of the child. Educators rely on their professional discretion to act ethically and extend student rights beyond constitutional minimums. Ask, who believes that they have discretion? Is it the teachers? Is it teacher aides? How far does that discretion extend? Inclusion and student voice. So we have the article Inclusion and the Other Kids. Students should have a regular space or spaces to express perceptions of how school is going and go beyond surveys. Actually talk with students, have student groups. Schools often underutilize student input in decisions that affect them. Useful prompts. If a student started here tomorrow, what should they know? So imagine having 4 or 5 students in a 5th grade class and asking that question. How might they feel about our school? Remember the long arc of progress. Non-discrimination has advanced significantly in 50 years, and you have contributed to that progress. Working with third parties. That's an article that I wrote. It is in this week's Moodle. Understanding the non-discrimination positions of any mental health providers working in your building. That's very common today. So use that article to kind of understand where the nexus, where the connections need to happen. Third-party services reduce access barriers for families, especially transportation and cost. So having those services provided in the school setting offers immense benefit. During the pandemic, schools proved how flexible and student-centered they can be. Look for and amplify those positives. Special education data. Your director will have identification percentages. These drive idea flow-through funds, such as how many students receive speech-language pathology services, SLD, other health impaired, autism, and so on. Look for disproportionate representation. Note emerging referrals related to long COVID. For example, cognitive fog, and I have an article or guidance from the federal government on how long COVID should be assessed. So there's quite a few areas in that long COVID document which seem kind of subjective to me. So how's your district kind of wrangling and rodeoing that in? Reflective teaching annotation that I posted for week one. Professional development must be data-driven and ongoing. Track all pupil services professional development by category and review it twice a year. For example, if we have a high need in math for students with disabilities, and we're not sending them staff to conferences on math, we need to change that. And likewise, if we have high truancy happening in our district, what are we seeking out for professional development to counter that high truancy? So again, attendance and truancy are major outcome drivers for students. So think proactively. I have an article I'll share later in this class. Some schools actually raffle off cars for good attendance. Sounds a little bit crazy, but they're getting results. Don't rush decisions. Most situations are not crises. Keep updated on parental education rights in cases of divorce and incarceration. Incarcerated parents should still be invited to IEPs by phone or video conference participation. Advisory council. So we have a discussion question on this. Should remain advisory, not decision-making bodies. Sometimes these advisory councils can become a little bit unwieldy, especially with turnover in administration. And it leads to a disproportionate amount of resources ending up at one school or kind of directed in one area. For example, one elementary school that always gets the new playground equipment because of their PTO fundraisers and maybe has the most adaptive playground equipment versus the other 4 elementary schools in the district. So our 2 discussion questions. Our first one, how do you educate parents, staff, and students about inclusion, harassment, bullying, and discrimination? And how will you check for understanding? If you say, you'll find it on our website. If you did a scavenger hunt right now with your staff and said, who can find our link for how to report bullying? It would probably take people a minute or so to find that, sometimes even longer. So just those types of things, checking accessibility. And another tip, run readability checks on handbooks and parent communications. I have a link posted for that. You take out what you've written in the handbook, you can post it in, it'll give you a reading level. Oftentimes you'll find that it is way higher than it should be, probably like a 12th grade level. We need it to be closer to that 6th, 7th grade level. How do you ensure professional development activities remain equitable and don't unintentionally create have or have not schools? Again, a school which is sending a lot of staff or doing a lot of professional development, and yet other schools maybe don't have those same initiatives. So it kind of goes into, if you're in a site-based management district, as a pupil services director, what the principals at each of the sites are opting to do for professional development and how you attempt then to keep that aligned across the district to the overall initiatives for pupil services. So typically I would do a shout out right now for students, and you'll see that in our week 2 Fireside chat, where I'll shout you out by first name and what your post is. I'll usually do that for about 3 or 4 students every week. But here we are ready for week 1. That is your Fireside chat. Get into Moodle, make your post, and I'm looking forward to reading them.